Hey everyone, today I'm here with Camille Holden, co-founder of Nuts and Bolts Speed Training, and she knows everything about presentations. It's awesome. So if you need PowerPoint presentations, trainings, or whatever, like you can get all the tricks and tips on her website. And she's gonna be here talking with us about presentations, not only PowerPoint, but like in general, how to actually make a good presentation, what is for a webinar or for like a big talk, a conference. It always changes, of course, like knowing the goal of the conference will change a little bit, but she was giving us the insights of what is it that people should do, or maybe just not even.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advice out there about what people should do or not do, and if you start reading all of that stuff, it can get very confusing or overwhelming or intimidating, and you already have so much to worry about when you're giving a talk. That I just sometimes recommend for people, especially if they're very nervous, to just forget about everything that people say and just practice your talk. Make sure that it's fun and engaging, that you're comfortable with it, and just have fun. And don't worry about your slides. I mean, we all know some of the best TED Talks don't even have slides.
Yes.
Sometimes. So you don't really need a support all the time there. So yeah, sometimes it's about doing less than doing more.
That's true. And also, like, because sometimes the whole support as the slides maybe makes people kind of like focusing too much on the slides and forgetting what people are saying. And I think this is one of the biggest mistakes some people sometimes do, because they will be kind of like almost competing attention with the slide, and people get confused, or even they try to read the slides or some things like that. That it's kind of feels weird, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's normal for any speaker, even like experienced speakers, to and I'm like not a good speaker myself, so I can't claim any skills in this area. But I know a lot of even advanced speakers will use slides and whatever's on the screen as a support, or even their notes. Sometimes you see speakers a lot of times are going back to their notes, and there's nothing inherently wrong with it. I think it's just sometimes it can be too much. It can be distracting for the audience, but it can also be distracting for you in a way. It's better to have the things you want to say really solid in the back of your head than being like, oh, it's fine, it's written on my slide. If ever I get stuck, I'll just look back, on the material.
Definitely true. Know what you're talking about, right? Like, just make sure that you do know what's going on in the flow, especially like with technical issues. Sometimes they happen.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And people will be like completely lost. Oh my god! And I feel like, well, those who know, they can also improvise, and it's all good.
That reminds me of I was at so every year we go to this presentation conference, and this year there was a round table with a discussion between a few kind of experts in the field, and the debate question was, do you think it's better to memorize your talk or not? And it was interesting that people felt differently, but my view is it's better to memorize it, because I feel like you're more likely to be able to improvise if you know everything by heart. The best musicians, they know their piece 100% by heart, inside and out, backwards probably. And that's when you can have improvisation. That's when you can be more creative. That's when you can continue to go with it if the sound just stops, or if whatever. And if you don't have it memorized, then I just feel like the chances of you getting caught up on something are bigger. And then people say, oh, but don't you sound robotic then if you've memorized it? You're going to sound like you're just saying something that it's like not your own. And I don't think that's really true. But
I think memorizing as well, at least for me, I won't think about like every single line of what I'm saying, even the jokes or anything. I feel like it's more memorizing the outline and the content of what I'm gonna say. So I do know what's the flow that I want to take people into, and then I'll just let it flow. I'm someone that I cannot really say things by heart and memorize exactly what it is. And if I write a script, or even like with videos and stuff, because if I get stuck into exactly the line that I was supposed to be saying, it just stops my flow. I'm gonna be horrible. I don't do this. That's why people do see already, like, I'm always just saying things, and I might say it kind of like not in a very linear way. But that's just a natural way for me to really be able to explore the topic as it goes, as it flows. And at least for me, I feel more comfortable like that. Right. It makes the improvising part kind of easier, I believe.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is feeling comfortable, like you said. I mean, if you feel comfortable, if you're, and everyone's different. I mean, some people have more or less comfort when they're on stage, or where they're in front of a camera, or where they're in front of other people. So it's just a matter of what makes you feel comfortable. And, if you're really, really nervous, maybe complete memorization is really awesome for you, because it actually, you're like, well, I don't have to be nervous because I know this thing by heart. Or maybe it's more nervous because you're thinking, oh, well, I'm going to forget a line and I'm going to get stuck. So it's whatever works for you, I think, is the best.
Totally true. We do know that a good visual support, it makes a difference. We know, at least I work in marketing and with branding and in agencies, that's how we would get our clients, right? Like by sending a really nice proposal, they will be like, oh, wow, she does the job. It's like immediately. Yeah. So for the slides itself or presentations, what would be like your tips, or how do you think, what are kind of reflections that people need to do when they're preparing the presentation?
I guess going back to speaking, the same rule applies to me is comfort. So, for example, I'm a PowerPoint person, but I'm not, what's the word? I'm not against any other software. So if Canva is easy for you to use, because Canva's great, use Canva. If Keynote works for you, use Keynote. If you want to use Prezzi, I'm not a big fan, but if that's what you're comfortable making, use Prezzi. Like, there's no hard and fast rule, and I'm a software agnostic person. Like, there's no better or worse software than the one you're comfortable with, right? Totally. No one wants to spend time learning a new piece of software. Yes. So that's number one, I would say. The only caveat with that is make sure that especially if you're going to a conference and you're going to have to use like a conference computer, make sure that they have that software, they can use it, because that can really throw you for a loop right before your talk.
Totally.
So that's the only rule. And some people actually even make presentations in MP4 format, like video format. You can export as a video, and then it doesn't get screwed up. But anyway, so that's kind of rule number one, is just use what you feel comfortable using.
It's totally true.
Then in terms of the slides, I mean, there's every type of presentation is different. The world of presentations is massive, and you have everything from, a lieutenant giving a presentation to his general about how they're going to invade this country. That's one kind of presentation. You have, you might have a CFO talking to his group of employees. It might be 100, 200 people, about what they're going to do. It's very technical. You could have a webinar. Probably a lot of people watching are doing webinars, or smaller scale like workshops or seminars. So you have maybe 30 people, sometimes just in front of a computer, sometimes in a room. So anyway, I'm not going to list all the kinds of presentations, but you get the idea. Like, there's so many different kinds of presentations. So having a specific kind of rule, I think, is just absurd. But for scenarios where typically you're just talking and someone is just listening, it's not like a furious note-taking, or it's not a plan of action, like, we're going to do this to invade this country or whatever.
Please don't.
I know.
That's not how I want people to be using my videos, okay? Just to be clear.
To invade the industry.
Yes, I like that. How we conquer the market.
But yeah, so if it's just people that you're kind of sharing insights with, I think the rule of generally fewer words is better, I think is good advice in general. So if you can really think, every time you make a slide, think about how fewer words you can have on the slide. I think that's better, because people like visuals better, and if you're you want them to focus on you and focus on what you're saying, not on your slides. So I think slides, like you said, they add to a presentation, but they can just as easily detract from it. So I would think of the slides as less of it's almost like an accessory. It's not the whole outfit. It's just an accessory. So you want people to see that it's there and it looks kind of nice. It's distracting, not distracting, but it's like it's an eye-catching thing. for a moment, but it's not the main thing. The main thing is you speaking. Now, if you're doing a webinar, it's different, right? Because a lot of times webinars, you don't have your face there. If it's just the slides, then they have to do all of the entertainment for you, right? So that's a totally different scenario. And there, I think the same rule though still applies about fewer words. Because you don't want people reading your slides, but they do have to be a little bit more engaging than just being a backdrop in front of, behind you. So those are some kind of like basic rules, and then there's a bunch of people love to hate animations, and I'm generally on the side of less animations is better. Personally, I think a lot of them are tacky, they're distracting, and if you're not an animations expert, oftentimes people just use them. They get a little crazy with animations, and it's distracting.
Yeah, I haven't really been seeing anymore like people using. I think it was something like a really long time ago now, or maybe on my corporate world, people will be like trying to make it fancy.
Unfortunately, it's still being used, but not in this space probably. So I think younger people are a little more like into.
I would say more like on the visuals, like more clean, and like kind of a mix, not necessarily just one background, and you kind of like change, and you have 3 different types of slides that can be like with different colors of background and like different formats, and that kind of makes a good composition, but not as much in the animations, I hope. I don't know.
Yeah, I again, when used properly, animations can be great. I mean, I think situations like if you have a chart and you want to talk about different things, to have it appear, sequentially, so that someone's not reading ahead. I mean, things like that, like well timed and well done animations. But the like swivelly things or the words popping in one by one. Unfortunately, are still being used in some industries, but hopefully you guys are beyond that.
I do animations on my videos just to try to catch people's eyes, but I'm still just testing with the editing and stuff. But I feel like this is a bit different.
I think it's different. So generally speaking, I would avoid animations. And then there are some tips I guess I could share about pictures. I think if people here are like designers, they probably know all these things already. But one of the things is to try to avoid using the tacky little white bubbly guy who's like pointing, and like the clip art type pictures. One rule that I heard from an expert that I like is to just use as much as possible. Use your own pictures oftentimes, because they're going to be unique, they're going to be interesting, they're going to be different. It may not be the highest quality image, but it'll be something more interesting. So take a camera. You have your phones with you at all times. Like take pictures of things that make you think of your topic, for example, or use images that are more what's the word? I'm blanking on the word. Less like metaphorical and figure, but more like realistic pictures. So for example, if you're talking about
like the real deal,
right? So if you're talking about overcoming challenges, like don't have a picture of someone jumping a hurdle or something, like a lot of that stuff is kind of overused and a little bit tacky, like a metaphor of hurdling the obstacle, so you could put a picture of a mountain or of, I don't know, I can't think of an example, but like there's a lot of pictures that, or teamwork, you have people like a bunch of pictures with hands on top of each other, a lot of that stuff is cheesy. If you have a picture about teamwork, put a picture of your team up, or a group of people, like these kind of metaphor pictures are, I think, a little bit overused these days. So it's just a couple things.
I see. It's just I feel like with the challenge still, like people just end up doing, because challenge normally, if it's something negative, then people don't want to put something that is weird. But of course, like having actually like a good picture that might not be negative, it can actually be more catchy for the eye and like, wow, create an impact, I guess.
Yeah, I guess another way to think about it would be to think about what the topic is. I mean, maybe it's not a picture of the challenge, but it's a picture of the topic, or it's a picture of if your challenge is getting an audience, maybe you put a picture of a person with an audience in front of them. Like it's just more literal.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think, and I think it's a little more. No, it's almost like it flows better in the audience's mind. Like you're talking about getting an audience, so a picture of an audience, it just kind of makes sense. Whereas suddenly seeing someone jumping a hurdle, it's like it's a little jarring.
Yeah, that's so true. No, I actually I never thought about that, like as in one of the rules, but it makes total sense. And you're also saying like about places that people can actually find pictures.
Oh yeah,
Where do
there's a ton of really awesome free images websites. And actually, I see some of those pictures around now, which is kind of funny. But one of my favorites is Pexels. So it's pexels.com, I believe. Pexels is awesome. They also have a free video version. So I think it's one of the tabs at the very top. I think it's videos.pexels.com.
Okay.
So you can have some really awesome free footage.
Nice.
Really nice quality ones. There's Pixabay is another one.
That's the one that I normally use. I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah, Pixabay is great. There's probably over a dozen of them. There's also some really great ones for free icons and vectors. For free sound bites, also for like sounds of crashing or waves or whatever. I can give you a link if you want.
Perfect,
to one of our, we have a resources page where we put all links to pictures and video and
I'll put
other tools.
Go check on the description of this video. It's gonna be all there.
And if you have other ones, like we have a common area in the bottom, and people can add what they really like, and if we check it out and it's cool, we'll add it there too. So it's just kind of a compilation. Yeah,
comment below here as well on this video, and then we know exactly what you're using and what works for you. And it's always interesting to have the discussions and let them know for the resources.
Yeah, totally. Me too. I think that we were talking earlier about bullet points, and I think
that's exactly.
Bullet points is one of those things that a lot of people love to hate. I get alerts on in my Google about anytime someone writes about PowerPoint or presentations, and you won't believe how many times people write about death by PowerPoint and how PowerPoint is evil, and studies are out there about how PowerPoint is killing student concentration, and it's like everyone loves to hate the software, loves to hate, the tool that's being used. And I always get a kick out of reading those things. But so going back to bullets, like bullet points are not evil. Like it's not the bullet point that's killing a slide or a presentation. It's the usage of it, right? Like any tool, it's like you can't blame the hammer for failing to put a nail into the wall. Like it's not the hammer's fault. So for bullet points, I think the purpose of a bullet point is to visually break out a list. So if you have a list, use a bullet point by all means. There's nothing wrong with a bullet point. So, for example, I love fruit such as strawberries, mangoes, pineapples. Those deserve They don't have to have bullet points. You could have them be. You could have icons. You could have pictures, images. You could break it out a number of different ways. But bulleted list is nothing wrong with that. Now, where it goes a little overboard is when people say, here's what we're going to do in 2017, and you've got like 5 paragraphs, and they each have a bullet point. There, it's not necessary, I would say. Or, because the PowerPoint slide typically comes default with a title and a bulleted list, people just start typing their content in the bulleted list. And then it doesn't make sense anymore.
I think it's about really the idea that, come on, let's differentiate what is paragraphs, what you want to explain more, and what is actually bullet points, right? Like I like to break down like more complex ideas into bullet points, especially like during presentations, because then I remember what are the topics that I need to talk, but I'm not gonna use the bullet point and explain the whole thing each by each, making a huge paragraph or like multiple sentences. I think that's what people need to have in mind, how to actually use the bullet points in a way to just summarize what they want to say. It's visually appealing and easy to grasp, and it just makes it easier for people to keep up with you talking.
Totally agree. And I think maybe a rule for that is to think about like if your bullet points are all sentences, like full sentences with the period at the end, they probably don't need to be bullet points. I mean, they could, but they probably don't.
Yeah.
So typically,
Yeah.
if it's just a word or a few words, then it's probably okay. But if it's like you're writing 2-3 lines or a full sentence, then it probably doesn't need to be in a bullet point. But again, these are just rules that like somebody made up that I'm just saying now, you know, it may work in your situation. Like, you shouldn't just feel bad because you broke some rule. Like, rules are meant to be broken. So.
Oh, totally. I love that.
Yeah.
What is the rule that you think we should be breaking then?
I think a rule, I guess that I'm learning to break is to feel like harder work equals more results.
Oh yeah.
And that I should be like working, you know, the people who've made it, the people who are successful are those who really put in the time and like worked crazy long hours, and like they were like eating ramen and living in a basement for 2 years, and only then were they successful. And I think it's this like idea that we have from books and from stories of these famous entrepreneurs, and I think for someone who doesn't have an ambition to be the next Steve Jobs or the next, founder of a multi-million-dollar business, like my ambitions are to like lead a really great life. That's what I'd like to do, and making money is part of that, but it's not, the ultimate goal. So as someone who doesn't have that ambition, I don't know why I sometimes feel like I need to follow that path. Like I need to somehow work crazy hours.
No, I think it's about working smart, right? I think nowadays we have conditions to actually learn how to work smart and do exactly what we feel like makes sense for us. And it's not only that doesn't make us like less ambitious or not. I think actually having the ambition of having a great life well lived is also an ambition. But and no judgment here of like how much people want to make or like the how big it's gonna be their empire.
Right.
But yeah, I think people should stop judging and comparing themselves as well. I think this is one of the things that should really stop. And the whole society pressure of like, oh yeah, that's how you need to do it. Like keep doing it. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you can do it and you provide great value, but why do I need to kill myself and my health just for work hard,
Well, and I think it's a matter of like, also for me, it's been about learning, setting what are my goals and my priorities. It's like I go back to that I forget where this is from, but the story about the fisherman in Mexico. You heard this?
No.
This is the story of like I forget, some consultant or like a corporate wealthy, like making good money corporate person goes on a holiday to Mexico, and he meets a fisherman in Mexico, and he takes him on a fishing trip and whatever, and he's talking with the fisherman, and he says, oh, you're such a great fisherman. If you had a few more boats, you could go out and take that many more tourists. And the fisherman says, oh yeah, and then what? And he said, well then you could go out and you could hire more guides, and then you could and then you wouldn't even have to go fishing. Then you could just manage your guides, and they take people out fishing. Oh yeah, and then what? And then you could have like a whole fleet. And he like goes on and on and on, and like lists all the ways that he could grow and all the ways he could do more things. And then he says, and then what? And then at the very end he says basically, oh well, and then you could just like take a nap in the middle of the day, go fishing when you want, and just enjoy living on the coast. And the fisherman's like, that's what I do now.
Yeah,
like, that's already what I'm doing. And I'm sure there's a variation on that story, but I think about that all the time. I'm like, what I'm doing now is to achieve what, and it's like, if I just want to be able to, I don't know, practice my ukulele and get a massage, like, couldn't I just be doing that now rather than like looking so far in the future and like working really hard for 10 years to be able to do something that I actually can already do now.
Yeah. I like what the Tim Ferriss says about this, right? Like the whole idea of like, actually, why are we waiting to enjoy life when it's retirement time?
Exactly.
When you can actually bring that to your life now. And I think that's what most of us, like location dependent people, are doing.
Right.
Because we are just kind of like enjoying and at the same time that we are working, we're still traveling and making sure that we have that balance between the lifestyle and work. And it's still working. For me, it's more about bringing the value and knowing that the value is out there. But I don't want to also kill myself and actually get totally strained. And there's a busy disease out there, right? Like we've talked yesterday about that in an interview, and people just want to prove themselves like by doing. They are busy, they're doing much, but sometimes it's not. And there's so much studies, especially like in corporations, like in the corporate world, in which people are super busy and like they are like working long hours, but the productivity is not as good. And actually, when people start like working remotely, and because they will avoid all those long meetings or things that they are just procrastinating or something, they want to actually get stuff done to enjoy life, they will be actually even more productive. So,
and I think that expands to even beyond. I think I'm just as guilty of that in my own location independent, like very lucky way, where it's very easy to be like, oh, I'm just going through Facebook, and I'm like, but I'm looking for something, like I'm doing something, or I'm gonna run around all day. Like I actually am a person who likes to be really busy, and I feel like I'm more productive when I have more things to do, and if I have less to do, I get like meh and lazier. So I do like to be busy, but there's kind of different levels of busyness. Like, but I think I'm still totally guilty of that. Like I think that's such an ingrained thing in our cultures for most people that come from the Western world. It's hard to train that out of yourself, because it's we're so used to it. Someone who's not doing anything must be lazy, must be not so intelligent, must be unambitious, like all these things, and those apparently are bad words. But yeah, I think it's.
I had this thing, like for me was the shift when I started delegating things. I was like, oh, but I have this big list to do. Like, how come I'm gonna like delegate it to someone else to do? And then the days like, well, but if I actually separate and like free that time, then I have more time to actually be creative and actually to start like going to step up for more strategical planning for other things that I can actually take care of in the business. So it definitely makes a difference. I like those ideas to break that rule. Let's just also find our own objectives in life and see how we can manage to have that balance. I like that.
Yeah, and it's a daily. For me, it's almost a daily thing. I would say, or a weekly thing. I go through phases and moments where I get caught up again into like, I need to get all this stuff done. And then moments where I'm like, why? And I don't. And maybe I just have a week of, whatever. I go to Gili Tea for 4 days, and if I don't end up working while I'm there because it's hard to work on your computer in the sun, that's okay. So but it's tricky.
Oh, thank you very much for your time, your words. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please share with us how do you do your presentations, how you're actually managing your work and life balance. And thank you for watching so much. Thank you again, Camille. Take a look on the links below. We're gonna put the resources over there, and keep in tune to this channel so you can actually have more interviews. There are plenty of things going on here about mindset, entrepreneurship, and personal growth and mindfulness. So hope you guys enjoy it, and see you soon.